Okay, good evening, everybody. We're going to be starting back up in a second. Welcome, everybody, to the Princeton Council meeting of January 13th, 2020, and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are going to start with announcements, and we'll start on my right with Ms. Perrin-Lambros. Any announcements for this evening?
No announcements.
Yes, I'd just like to take a quick second to recognize the service of our assistant engineer, Tijal Patel, whose last day is tomorrow, and just to put on the record how great it's been to work with her over the last year and how much I've appreciated her hard work and her preparedness, and I'll miss her contributions. So, thank you.
Yeah, just one quick announcement. One of the things I'm working on this year, one of the new things is I'm part of the technical committee helping the school board do their new planning process. And so on behalf of them, I want to announce that there is an open public meeting on January 25th, 9 a.m. at the high school. So anybody who's interested in having input into that planning process is welcome to come.
Thank you. Leticia?
I have a few announcements. The first one is from the health department. Flu shots for uninsured individuals. The health department will provide anyone without insurance free flu shots, and this would be for anyone 6 months of age or older. And to make an appointment, please visit the municipal webpage and search flu shot or call the health department. Another announcement is there's going to be a free rabies clinic for dogs and cats. It's being offered to Princeton residents on Saturday, March 7th from 9 to 11 a.m. at the Witherspoon Street Firehouse. My other announcement is this is on behalf of Human Services, that they are in collaboration with the Welcoming America, Princeton Public Schools, the Princeton Civil Rights Commission. They have the unique opportunity to offer 2 free workshops, and these workshop opportunities are designed to provide tools to advance welcoming work while engaging and connecting individuals who are interested in ensuring that all residents can thrive and belong in our community. The first workshop will be on February 13th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The title of this workshop is Positive Communications in Turbulent Times. And all are welcome, but especially interested in engaging community leaders, faith institutions, and nonprofit organizations. The other one is, the title of it is Building Welcoming and Inclusive Schools. This will be held also on the 13th, but from 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the purpose, again, this one's also open to everyone who's interested, but especially want to engage educators, including teachers, administrators, and frontline staff at the K through 12 levels. The admission is free, but pre-registration is required to guarantee a seat. The space is limited, so please register by February 7th by contacting the Human Services Department. And I believe they also have a link online to register. My other, not so much an announcement, but I understand there's a lot of individuals here that are interested in speaking on Resolution 2040, and this is a resolution calling upon the White House and Congress to reunify migrant families. And currently, right now, it's on the consent agenda, and I'm going to ask that it be moved out of the consent agenda, and that we, for public comments, that we hear it, consider it after public comments.
Okay, is there a motion to, or second on amending the agenda?
So, seconded.
All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we'll take that up after public comment. And Mr. Williamson?
None tonight.
And Ms. Sachs, any announcements? Okay, I have a few announcements. The first is, since it's the beginning of the year, Council's in the midst of our goal setting for 2020. We had a productive meeting over the weekend on Saturday, and we're going to be having 2 meetings this week. There's going to be one tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., so hopefully we're not here too late tonight. We'll be meeting with our boards, committee, and commission chairs, especially ones involved with emergency and social services. That meeting will be from 8 to 9:30 a.m. in the community room. And then we'll have a second meeting on Thursday morning, also 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. in the community room, this one focusing on land use and transportation. So an invitation went out to all of the chairs of our boards, committees, and commissions, but they're both open meetings, so anybody from the public is welcome to attend. Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The municipality will be closed that day, but your recycling will still be picked up. And there are several events happening in town that day. I just wanted to relay a few of them I'm aware of. There's a community breakfast at the Arts Council in the morning. The Friends of Princeton Open Space is hosting a day of service in nature. And you can sign up to help with forest restoration at Mountain Lakes, and that's going to be on Monday from 9 until noon. And then in the evening, the Princeton Clergy Association is going to be holding a interdenominational service at Nassau Church starting at Nassau Presbyterian Church starting at 7 p.m. And there'll be a special remembrance there of Rabbi Feldman. Are there any other staff announcements? Ms. Stockton?
I just wanted to note on Martin Luther King Day, we also have free on-street parking.
Thank you. That's a welcome announcement. And I just want to reiterate with what Ms. Niedergang said about Tejal Patel. We're really going to miss her and her assistant. She's been a really great addition to the engineering department, and she'll have big shoes to fill, but we wish you luck in finding someone else who's really great too. Okay, and now we come to the award of recognition for this evening, and I want to turn it over to Council President Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to stay up here to read my little statement, and then I'll come down and call up the recipients to receive their certificate of appreciation. Princeton has a history of supporting affordable housing dating back to 1938 with the establishment of the Princeton Housing Authority, a public agency created with the purpose of building housing supported by the federal government. In 1967, a group of private citizens decided that there was a need for more affordable housing. 16 years before New Jersey courts established the requirement that all communities in New Jersey facilitate the construction of affordable housing under the Mount Laurel Doctrine. That private group created Princeton Community Housing, which has been a mainstay of the community ever since. Today, under the able guidance of its 18-member Board of Trustees, paired with the formidable management skills of Executive Director Ed Truselli, PCH administers nearly 600 units of rental housing, some owned by the municipality, but mostly owned by PCH. They also constantly work hand in hand with the municipality to increase our stock of affordable housing to ensure our continuing diversity as a community. We are exceedingly grateful to these caring and civic-minded individuals who help us extend a warm welcome to many who would otherwise be unable to call Princeton home. We especially want to recognize Valerie Haynes and Alice Small, board VPs, who will be here accepting tonight on behalf of PCH. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, thank you. Again, Ed Truselli with Princeton Community Housing. I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire organization and also the legacy that has been established by the folks who came before me and before us. We have quite a contingent here tonight who are appreciative of this recognition, and we look forward to continuing our legacy of working with the community in all aspects to make this an open and welcoming place to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. When David suggested recognizing Princeton Community Housing, I think there was universal, just
What a
great
great
selection,
idea.
great choice, perfect timing too. So we're all really appreciative of all of your work, the history, and all of the work we're going to be doing together intensely over the next couple years, especially. All right, so now we come to comments from the public for items not already on the agenda, and we'll start with the sign-up sheet, and then if there's anybody else who'd like to speak to something not on the agenda, we'll take you after. So first up is Ralph Perry. Mr. Perry, your moment has come.
Hi there, I hope you can. Oh, this is hi. First of all, I would like to thank our Mayor Lampert for her work that she did for this town for the last 5 years, and especially ushering in the consolidation and doing this without raising the taxes almost, which is almost an impossibility. But this is just as an opening here. I really would like to talk about Westminster Choir College. What's happening here is that Westminster Choir College is slowly being wounded to the point where in 3 years from now, it will no longer exist as we know it. Westminster Choir College is a most important part of this city. If I may quote Mr. Hillier in his September editorial in Princeton magazine.
You have to speak, even though it sounds loud to you, you have to speak directly into the mic so other people can hear you.
That was good. Yeah.
If I may quote Mr. Hillier in Princeton magazine of September this year, he said, Princeton is literally the leading academic center in the state of New Jersey. The University of Princeton, the Theological Seminary, Westminster Choir College, and the Institute for Advanced Study. He put Westminster right there with the 3 other big institutes that we have. If I go back many years and I quote Leonard Bernstein, he said, Westminster Choir College provides a great measure of beauty to the world that needs it badly. I don't have to say really much more about how great Westminster is. Everybody does know it. Something momentous happened in the last 6 months. Until then, we couldn't do much because Ryder theoretically sold Westminster to the Chinese. It was a kind of an almost done deal, and nothing could have been done. Then the Chinese walked away. The litigation is going to take 3 more years, and by that time, all hell is going to come loose here. First of all, Ryder is losing money. They're losing $9 million a year. Westminster Choir College, in the last years, has been making $2.5 million a year, and they are self-sustainable. There's no need to take them away or support them with money. The second thing that happened here is that the Ryder, once they faced the disaster that there are no buyers, they decided to take the faculty and students down to Lawrenceville, and voila, they have a real estate deal. They're going to sell 23 acres in Princeton, and people are going to buy it, are going to take down the houses, whatever. I mean, I'm not even talking about litigation, like taking down the Scheide house, or taking down the Bristol chapel, and things like that, which is a different story. That's what happened over there. And the last thing is that Westminster is hemorrhaging. This year, the freshman class lost 50% of the students that they had last year. They had less registration. This year, the full-time students were 240. 3 years ago, there were 400. There is a shrinkage going. People from the outside world, or outside Princeton, so to speak, don't want to go to Ryder College. Ryder is a second-class university which charges slightly over $40,000 a year. It's cheaper to go to Rutgers, which is a better university. So there is a problem. The litigation is going to go another 3 years. In another 3 years, we're going to face a lose-lose situation. Ryder is losing money. They could go into bankruptcy. Westminster is going to be...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a big room of people here, so, and I don't know if
Okay,
the timer's working, but I just want to...
I will say that. What will Princeton lose if Westminster is not here? Aside from the first thing is losing one of the 4 jewels that we have in this town. That's the first thing. The second thing is that many years, the student, I don't know, 20, 30 years, the students of Westminster are teaching music and voice in the high school, all in the Princeton schools without charging anybody. That is going to disappear. Westminster is giving this town free concerts every Saturday and Sunday. People go there with the little children, 2, 3 years old, who are learning music. That is going to disappear. So there is a real loss to Princeton. And with that, we have to do something about it. And I urge everybody here to just go to Westminster, to Ryder, and tell Ryder that no deal can be made if they move the people of Westminster out of Princeton. They got to leave Westminster people in Princeton. And the last thing, if I may, and I hope the mayor will forgive me if I quote her, where at least this is what Town Topic said you said, where you said you weren't born in Princeton and you didn't grow up here, and you say there is a, whatever it is, you said that Princeton is one of the greatest cities in the world. Well, if Westminster goes away from here, Princeton is not going to be as great as it used to be. So I thank you very much for listening to me, and if anybody has any questions about Westminster or how to do it or what can be done, I'm willing to answer it either here or any other time. And I left copies of this there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we're all as concerned as you are about the fate of the institution, because it's a really important one for Princeton, and I think we've been trying to navigate exactly what the town can do. And I think at this point, really, it's more us as individuals, and the municipality is obviously not in a position to operate a musical institution. So, we're happy to help in whatever way we can. But, I've gotten letters, people want the town to buy the school, and it's not as, I don't think anybody really wants that if you think about it, because we're not in a position to do that. But, this is an amazing community, and we're hoping people can rally in some way to save it, because I think all of us as individuals recognize how important it is. So thank you for your efforts in that department.
May I make a quick comment? I would just be, we all have opinions on different schools, but I would just be careful because of calling any school a second-rate school. I'm sure there are a lot of Rider University faculty, staff, or students who reside in Princeton. In fact, one works with me at my law firm, and I'm sure she would take offense to anyone referring to someone's school as a second-rate school. I said, the comments, whether or not one agrees with your comments or not, I'll just be careful about using terms like that when referring.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think, it's just like both comments, just sort of,
Right.
they're on their own merits. We have to move on to other
Right.
things on our agenda,
Right.
but thank you.
Okay.
Is there
We can-
anybody
we
else
can
who'd
go-
like to speak on something that's not already on the agenda? Okay, please come to the mic.
Good evening. My name is John Hart from Hopewell Township. For those that don't know me, I was here last year to talk to you about the deer management plan you had over there in Herenton Woods. And I wanted to offer my services over there for taking the donated deer, because we have a place just 8 miles away that we provide venison to the food bank in Trenton. So I thought I was going to be on your radar last year, because White Buffalo told me they were going to bring it to me. And I had 7 guys there waiting for the deer to show up. And I called them at 10 o'clock at night, and they said, oh, no, we had to take them to Lebanon, an hour away. So I says, well, I got them right here. I can take them. So I said, well, we'll do it next year. Well, this year came along, and I called the animal control officer, Jim, back in September, October. He got back to me in November and came and inspected my facility to make sure we could handle that amount of deer. I said, we can take up to 70 deer a night, but they would only be bringing 20 a night. And he wanted to make sure that we could keep them processed so that we could won't hold your hunt up. So I thought we had it. I called White Buffaloes. They said they can bring them there, or you're going to bring them there. They just shoot them, and then your animal control officer takes them. Well, I find out again this year that White Buffalo again says the contract is with game butchers up in Lebanon, and that your employee takes them up there at night, 2.5-hour round trip that you're paying him, when I'm only 15 minutes down the road. And that venison is going to the Hunterdon County Food Bank, and these deer live in Mercer County, and we wanted to go to the Mercer County Food Bank. So I want to know if the contract just says that the White Buffalo does the kill and you provide the transportation. So I'm here to tell you I can save you a lot of money, because your overtime man is only going to be dropping them off 15 minutes away instead of 2.5 hours away. And he'd already inspected my facility and said that we can drop the venison off. I told him he can drop it off any time up till midnight, and he says that would be done. So I want to know what happened, because I talked to your administrator, attorney, or somebody last year, and I thought I was going to be on the list that I could bid for it or whatever, but it's 2 years in a row. I thought I was going to have it, and here they're going 2 hours away again.
Okay, this probably should be dealt with offline, but Mr. Grosser,
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I know there's been some discussion with this. You know, John, I've spoke with you as well. Part of the confusion in the beginning had to do with Jim being new to the program and not understanding that it was going through White Buffalo. White Buffalo subcontracts us out to Game Butchers, who's been used by the municipality for the last 20 years. Never had an issue. White Buffalo's always been comfortable with them being used in the past. With regards to this agreement now, I think when discussions were had, it was after the fact of the application going to the DEP. Once the application goes to the DEP, we have to lay out every single detail all the way to who's going to be butchering the deer. So again, if the conversation wants to be had again, I think the conversation needs to happen with White Buffalo, because they're the ones that organize the game butchering. And one of the reasons why is because within their clause, within their contract, any delay in butchering is not only a financial penalty to the municipality, but it's also a waste of the meat. So I looked into where the meat was being donated right now. You're right, most of it does work its way up north. A lot of it goes to Newark soup kitchens as well. Whether or not we can get that to come down south, that's something to be discussed, but we have to have that discussion with White Buffalo because they're the ones that directly contract this out.
They only
No, we
shoot them.
can't-
You
we
guys
can't-
are the ones that.
I'm sorry, we can't have a back and forth right now, and I feel like this is a individual issue that's probably not best dealt with at a council meeting, so I encourage you to reach out to Mr. DeShield
Well,
and Mr.
if I can
Grosser.
just take half of them this year so I could get something out of this, because I've 2 years in a row, I've had people waiting, that's all.
Okay, yeah, I just ask that you take it offline, so.
Who do I
'cause we
talk
have
to?
You can talk to Mr. DeShield right there, or Mr. Grosser. So if
Okay.
you drop off your business card, we can be in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on an item not already on the agenda? Okay, so we're going to close public comment, and then we're going to move to Resolution 2040. And Ms. Fraga, did you have any comments about this before we open it up?
I do. I mainly especially wanted to acknowledge and recognize Afshin Shamsi, who actually was a former member of Princeton Civil Rights Commission. I want to thank you for your advocacy, for drafting this resolution that's before us, and for bringing it to the Civil Rights Commission. When you presented it to the Civil Rights Commission, I think all members agreed that wasn't a question whether this was a resolution that they wanted to get behind. Actually, the discussion was, is there additional protections that we could recommend in the resolution? And I know you'll be speaking more as to what other communities are doing or other communities that are considering the same resolution. So, but I truly so appreciative of you bringing this to us, and I feel that this resolution truly reflects our values and who we are as a community when it comes to protecting our neighbors. Thank you.
Great. All right. And I'm just going to read it and then ask for a motion to introduce. So it's 2040 resolution calling upon the White House and Congress to reunify migrant families, release them from detention, and afford them due process in immigration proceedings. And is there a motion to approve?
I would like to move that we
And
approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Are there any comments from council before we open it up to the public? Okay, so we'll go off the sign-up sheet here, and I will say we are happy to hear from everybody. My sense is that this is going to pass unanimously, so yeah, you don't have to work too hard on your arguments, but I think it's, for people who want to go on the record, we understand. So first is Diane Paulsell.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Diane Paulsell, and I'm part of a group of neighbors that aims to accompany members of our community who are targeted by ICE enforcement. Over the past year, we've accompanied well over 100 neighbors to ICE check-ins, appointments, detention, immigration court hearings, and other spaces where our presence can be helpful to our neighbors. I think we've all seen the news by now, and we know that the Northern Triangle of Central America is experiencing some of the highest levels of violence in the world, with rates of violence on par with many armed conflicts. And this violence, coupled with poverty, marginalization, corruption, and a climate of impunity, is driving families and unaccompanied minors to flee the region. What I want to make sure everybody here understands is that many of these families, youth, and children that have fled the region are seeking safety right here in Princeton. We have dozens of unaccompanied minors and many families with children, particularly from Guatemala, living right here, and they are at risk. You may think family separation only happens at the border, but I'm here to tell you that Princeton parents have been taken away from their children by ICE, and ICE does come into our town and take people away. And so I applaud the resolution and the council for taking it up tonight. The original resolution referred to legal representation for people who are in detention in New Jersey. And I asked the author to expand it, and she did, to include people in deportation proceedings, because we have many families and children in deportation proceedings in our town. And I think if Princeton Council is going to take up a resolution, it should speak to the needs of residents of Princeton. And I really hope this can be more than just a statement of principle, although that is important. Many of our youth who have arrived unaccompanied and families with children in our public schools are facing immigration judges without an attorney. Our group has accompanied high school students to immigration court in Newark, where they stood up and faced a judge and a prosecutor without an attorney. Last month, one of our volunteers took an 8-year-old child from Princeton to immigration court in Newark for his deportation hearing. You heard that right, 8 years old, and he stood in front of the judge in a deportation hearing without an attorney. Last year, a parent of 2 girls was detained, and it took the attorney that we helped the family hire 6 months to get him out on bond. She told us that his detention could have been avoided if he had had competent legal representation. So let's think about those girls. Do you think they could pay attention at school while their father was in detention and they didn't know if he was going to be deported? Could they even sleep? I mean, my child would not have been able to sleep if I was in detention for 6 months. And I think we know that this is a significant trauma that will be with them for the rest of their lives. So this is just so wrong. I feel that no child, youth, parent, or guardian in our public schools should have to face an immigration judge and a prosecutor without legal representation. We're so blessed to live in this beautiful town. We have so many resources, wealth, smart people, experts, problem solvers. We really need to fix this, and we should be able to find the resources to do it. That 8-year-old has another hearing in June, and I just hope he can have an attorney by then. And I want to say, folks, these are our neighbors, right? Their children are sitting in the same classrooms as our children. They prepare food in the restaurants that many of us enjoy. They mow our lawns, they clean our homes, and many other things. Next week, a group of us are starting sort of a self-help legal clinic to help neighbors prepare applications and prepare for court, because there are no free legal resources in our area for people in deportation proceedings. And this will help, but frankly, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, right? We need a lot more. We really need a legal representation program. I don't know what the exact solution is. I have some ideas that I'd love to talk about. I don't know if it's public or private, but I do think we need to get this done. Legal representation is more upstream solution that can prevent additional trauma to our children and families. And I think in Princeton, we pride ourselves on being forward-thinking and innovative. So what I want to say is, let's lead in our state and create a model for how to get this done for our children and families. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. And can you, what's the name of your group again? Do you have a?
Solidaridad Princeton.
Solidaridad. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work. Afshin Chomsky?
Thank you, Mayor Lempert and members of Princeton Council for your consideration. And now, as I learn your unanimous support for Resolution 2040. I'm here to ask you tonight for your support for this resolution, but because I know now that you're going to be supporting it, I thank you for listening to our statements. The last two towns that I went into this resolution, and I went to speak in support of the resolution, they did indeed pass, but residents actually came up to speak up in opposition to the resolution. And the only people who were there to speak in support were myself and my friend who's a highest advocate, and we were both out-of-towners. And I just thought that can't happen again. We've got to have residents there to speak in support. And so as this resolution goes across the state and even nationally now, I'm working to ensure that there are actually residents from each township who are coming to speak on behalf of immigrants in their communities. I want to start out by thanking everyone who showed up tonight to support this resolution. I really am so very grateful. I know that the most valuable thing you can give anyone is your time. And so this is an important issue that we all need to speak to. And I thank you for making the time to come here and talk about why it's important to pass this resolution. I ask you to keep your remarks brief so that they can make their council can make their 8 a.m. meeting tomorrow morning and not be tired. And so I will keep my remarks brief as well. I think it's important to speak in support of this resolution, not just for the purpose of addressing opposition, but also to let the immigrant communities in our neighborhoods know that we support them and that we as a community want them here and we want to support them in every way that we can. So I'm going to start out by just sharing how this resolution came to be. In August of last year, I had written an op-ed which was published in the Star Ledger calling upon all people of conscience to reach out to their elected officials at every level to call for an end to the concentration camps in our country. I had shared this resolution with Mayor Lempert and Princeton Council and had asked all of you to raise Princeton's official voice on this matter. I had suggested that a resolution could be one possible avenue, and that is when, Mayor Lempert, you invited me to craft this resolution. Thus, I went to work and crafted the resolution that's on the agenda tonight with expert input from ACLU New Jersey's senior staff attorney, Heron, who works on immigrants' rights, and Make the Road New Jersey's director of worker organizing and policy, Adil Ahmed. This resolution calls on our elected officials at every level to reunify migrant families, to put an end to migrant detention, and to allow families to go through immigration proceedings, and it has sparked a movement across the state. Under the leadership of Mayor Sadaf Jaffer, Montgomery was the first town in New Jersey to pass the resolution, and Bound Brook became the second town at the end of last year. I'm glad that Princeton is leading the way and will be among the top 3 towns to pass this resolution first. It's also on the agenda for Hoboken this Wednesday night and Jersey City next week. Additionally, a number of other towns are also considering the resolution. Last week, I spoke to the executive director of a national nonprofit, which has 150 chapters across the nation, and they have agreed to help me disseminate this resolution nationally and to call upon their membership across the country to get them to get their local towns all across the country to pass this resolution to call for an end to the inhumane treatment of migrants. To that end, I'm developing a toolkit for them. And so, Mayor Lempert and members of the council, I want to thank you for inviting me to craft this resolution. Your invitation is having a tremendous impact across the state and then nationally as well. I'm truly grateful to be part of a wonderful community. At this point, I was going to read a statement of support from the ACLU New Jersey, who really wanted to be here tonight, but due to a personal emergency could not. I'm just going to give you that statement so you'll have it for the record. I'm not going to read it. But in closing, I would like to thank Councilmember Leticia Fraga and members of the Princeton Civil Rights Commission for bringing this resolution to council and unanimously supporting it. And as I've been going to other towns to speak in support of the resolution, I've heard some people opine that it's not a township's place to comment on federal matters. Seeing the inhumane treatment of migrants in detention centers across our country has made me wonder if this is how the Holocaust started. And people, when it initially started, thought, it's not my place to comment, this is not my jurisdiction. I believe that this is an issue for every person of conscience, and now is the time to raise our voice. In fact, it was yesterday. This is an issue for every business, every corporation, every institution, and every elected official. We all need to raise our voices against this. I thank you for your unanimous support, and I thank you for raising your voice and for giving a voice to the voiceless.
Thank you. So Sean Miller and then Dr. Robert Karp.
Good evening. My name is Sean Henry Miller, and I'm here as a community liaison on behalf of the Bayard Rustin Center for Social Justice and Chief Activist Robert Seder-Schreiber, and indeed the entire center itself, to voice our support for this resolution. As you may know, our young but vibrant organization strives to be a safe haven for anyone in our community who needs an ally, an advocate, or a group that is abundant with acceptance, respect, and compassion. But most importantly, we dedicate ourselves to supporting the rights and well-being of our neighbors, who are members of the most vulnerable and historically marginalized groups. As recent news and countless reports have shown and continue to show, migrant families have suddenly become perhaps the most vulnerable and marginalized of these groups. It is this reason why we choose to stand steadfast with migrant families, and it is this reason why we will fight for their rights and for humane justice as is outlined in this resolution. The conditions under which detained migrants are forced to live is absolutely abhorrent and resembles human rights violations committed throughout history, as previously mentioned, where adults, teenagers, and children have been corralled into small prisons, cells, detention facilities, different forms of human cages, where they must live for months or years, no different from animals in factory farms. Most of these people, now an estimated 52,000 persons each day, do not have enough food to eat, so they are constantly hungry and cannot access adequate medical attention. Consequently, some have died under our supposed protection. Thousands of these adults, teenagers, and children have reported being sexually assaulted or physically abused. Statistically, the odds are that some of these kids and adults are being abused right now as we speak. Annually, it's estimated that we now detain over 500,000 migrant people each year, a population roughly the same size as the city of Baltimore. We also now spend $3 billion a year to do so as a country. To put this abstract figure in other words, it's as if every single American is being taxed $27 a year to jail these people in masses. And make no mistake, yours and my tax dollars are funding this. The majority of these families have also been ripped from the arms of their family members, loved ones, and packed into what are essentially overcrowded cages and made to experience traumatic and degrading conditions that are sure to cause severe and lasting physical and psychological damage. This is the definition of inhumane. And as has been noted, this is an ongoing violation of basic human rights, as has been established both under Article 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as our own U.S. Constitution, due process, and procedural rights. It is for these reasons that the members of our diverse community, many of whom have seen and experienced various forms of systemic oppression and injustice firsthand, unanimously feel great pain in our hearts, empathy for our migrant neighbors, empathy for our migrant neighbors, family, and friends, and the need to do everything within our power to defend them from this grossly inhumane, unjust, unlawful, and incredibly un-American, not to mention un-Princetonian, practice of separating families, holding them in disgustingly overcrowded facilities, and denying them fair and equitable access to legal representation. We cannot treat all of these people worse than even criminals simply because they crossed our borders recently and en masse. They are asylum seekers and dreamers. They are our tired, poor, and huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Let us once again be a country that stands up for the rights and dignity of fellow human beings. Let us once again be a beacon of hope that shows the rest of the world how to coexist peacefully with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I'm Robert Karp. I'm an emeritus professor of pediatrics at SUNY Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn, where I ran a clinic of probably 10,000 patients at any one time in the records, a substantial majority of whom were immigrants of all levels, some citizens, some green card holders, some many DACA children, and some undocumented. And I want to speak about one particular issue in this, which is the separation of children from their parents, which is an essential element in this, partly as a pediatrician for a short bit, because the gentleman, Sean, who just spoke, said it so eloquently. The trauma to these children when they are separated is so traumatic, even without abuse. The abuse itself is the separation. And one must also think of the parent, often the mother, who has a child torn away from them for an indeterminate time, and they don't know where they are. And that doesn't need a pediatrician to say that, because we all realize that. So to me, a larger issue is the ethical, perhaps you could call it religious or spiritual element that I believe must be included, and we cannot shy away from saying on a belief that saying so violates separation of church and state, because it does not. Those who attend the Yom Kippur service are quite familiar, and others who read the Bible are quite familiar with the passage from Isaiah, which said, "This is the fast I desire, to cut the chains, to feed the hungry, house the homeless, clothe the naked." And it's easy to draw a direct line to the comment in Matthew 35, where Jesus says exactly the same words to describe the people who are blessed, and ends with this very profound statement, "As it is with the least of you, so it is with me." You can find the same thing. It's in Hidath 18, where the Prophet Muhammad says, one cannot love God if one does not love their neighbor. So I hope these are included. I've heard the comment of how important it is to make sure we have the legal representation, and of course it is, and how important it is to include the psychological implications of all these things that are done to children and to families of immigrants. But please include the ethical considerations that are being violated, because so often ethical considerations are raised on other issues which we are aware, which people have a right to do. And we have a right to use this kind of ethical concerns that we have based on the religious and spiritual traditions of all of us. One does not have to be a believer, from the secular all the way to the absolute believer, that must be added to the comments that we make about this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Huega, Linda Oppenheim, and then Yael Nev.
Good evening, Maria Huega, 66 Grover Avenue, Princeton. First of all, I would like to thank Afshin for bringing this important statement to our consideration, and thank you to Counsel and to the Civil Rights Commission for supporting it so wholeheartedly. I would just, for the sake of time, would like to suggest a very tiny but I think meaningful change, and that is the title of the resolution should include New Jersey, the state of New Jersey, as one of the bodies that are being called to action. And clearly the last two action items on the resolution are pertaining to things that we can do here in New Jersey that would have a very meaningful impact in the short term to relieve the kind of horrors that we know are going on. One is to institute civilian oversight over the detention centers where these immigrants are being held. That is extremely important. We know that lots of abuses are taking place right here in New Jersey, and by both county jails and centers that are being run by private agencies. And the second item was already addressed, the need for legal representation of those who cannot afford an attorney. New Jersey has taken some steps in that direction, but nearly not enough. And these are things that are being done elsewhere, such as in New York, where every immigrant who has to face an attorney has to face a judge, an immigration judge, is provided with an attorney. That's the only comment or suggestion I have on the resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Oppenheim. I live at 45 South Harrison Street. I'm here to speak in support of Resolution 2040 and to thank you for your support for the resolution. The resolution has personal meaning for me. My mother came to this country at 17 years old from Poland in 1929 as a foreign student. When her visa ended, she went to her brother, who himself had emigrated to Mexico, and somehow, I don't know how, she arranged to immigrate from Mexico. So when I hear the phrase illegal immigrant, it has personal, distressing resonance for me. Had my mother not done what she did, had she gone back, she as a Jew had gone back to Poland in the mid-1930s, she undoubtedly would have been murdered along with her sisters and their families, my aunts, uncles, and cousins. She remained, and I was born in mid-century America, a white child with unparalleled opportunities for health, shelter, and education. I have felt an obligation as a patriot, as someone who loves this country, to see that all residents, whether born here or not, have equal opportunities to achieve their highest potential. Because in our people lie our true strength and wealth. The present situation in which more than 2,000 immigrants, many having fled dangerous situations in their home countries, are detained in our state, unable to afford legal assistance, lacking education, mental health services, and other care, without meaningful civilian oversight, in which migrant families and their children are detained in conditions that are often unsafe and unsanitary, often without adequate food, water, or access to necessary hygiene and sanitary products, is not worthy of this country and its ideals. I have lived in Princeton most of my life and cherish the town's reputation for being a welcoming community. I am grateful for my friend Afshin Shamsi's leadership in bringing this resolution to Princeton and other New Jersey towns. I am grateful to you, the leaders of Princeton, for supporting this resolution and allowing Princeton to continue to live up to its reputation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yael Niv. I live in 377 Franklin Avenue, and I'm also a co-founder and member of Princeton Progressive Action Group, whose mission is to promote an inclusive and welcoming Princeton where access to opportunity is shared fairly by socially, racially, and economically diverse people. So my statement today is mine, not on behalf of PPAG, although we are all for this mission. So I would like to support the Council in passing Resolution 2040, calling upon the White House, Congress, and the state of New Jersey to reunify migrant families, release them from detention, and afford them due process in immigration. Of all the things that the Trump administration has done that I find troubling, the one I find most unfathomable is the policy of separating families, children from their parents, whether at the border or due to surprise raids and detention of parents. A reality in which a child goes to school not knowing whether they will have parents to care for them when they come home is one that brings to me as well back pictures and stories from my grandparents, who are all Holocaust survivors. I cannot believe this is the reality our neighbors live in, and I urge the town to do all it can to ease their burden and support them in these terrible times. I know that this resolution cannot force any action on the part of ICE or the government, and is only a declaration of our values and our principles. However, there are things we can do, and I applaud work that the mayor and council have done in the past and continue doing to help mitigate the threat of raids and detentions and to help create safety mechanisms where possible. I would like to call on the mayor and council to think even more broadly of our commitment to our undocumented neighbors and to remember their needs when planning things like affordable housing. Although some undocumented families are eligible for affordable housing, there are many barriers for them to apply and to get approved, which perhaps the town can pressure landlords to remove where possible. Sorry, I lost my text. Where was I? Moreover, details of the affordable housing plan that is being discussed in council and will be shortly submitted to approval by the court also affect the cohesion and inclusivity of our community and whether all of our neighbors feel welcome into the fold of our town. I urge the council to work towards as cohesive and integrated a town as possible through inclusive and expansive zoning and planning where possible. Especially given the travel to work and school is often unsafe for immigrants, I believe that in order to be a truly welcoming community, we must strive to provide housing security and safe employment and education to our neighbors, which means having them integrated within the town and not segregated into separate communities housed far from schools and employment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everybody who spoke. Is there anybody else who needs to speak on this? Okay.
Hi, I'm John Heilner. I live on Howe Circle in Princeton. I'm here tonight to represent the Latin American Legal Defense and Education Fund, and also myself as a resident of Princeton. I want to thank Afshin and the Civil Rights Commission for bringing this resolution forward. For far too long, and certainly for the last 3 years, we've enabled the what's called the industrial incarceration complex to make huge profits off our immigrant neighbors, and we have to stop that. Almost every detainee in these immigration centers has done nothing to jeopardize public safety. The few that might have can be held in jails. And in fact, the Attorney General's trust directive from March of last year clearly lays out those violations that should result in people being held and not let go. So we have the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, who has researched this, has worked with law enforcement agencies all around the state, and he's laid out who should be held and who shouldn't, and very, very few should. I'd also like to just comment on the egregious conditions in both the Essex and Hudson County jails and detention centers. Especially at Hudson County, it's well documented that 2 or 3 people have died in the last 3 or 4 years in detention. So that's the starkest example of what's going on there. I would urge the U.S. Congress, which this resolution does, also the state of New Jersey, to take action to close the detention centers. And I'd also like to advocate, as the resolution does, for much greater legal representation. There are statistics that people have spent a lot of time putting together that show that detainees with legal representation have something like 5 to 7 times better chance of gaining asylum than people who have to appear by themselves, especially 8-year-old young girls. So I urge you to pass this resolution. Thank you.
And then I think there's 2 more people who'd like to speak, and then I'd like to cut it off because, like I said at the beginning, I think we know what the outcome is already, and we have other things on our agenda. And I do appreciate all the comments, and I think we're especially really grateful for the work on the ground that's being done, and hopefully everybody here can get connected with one another. I think the easy part is for us to vote on this resolution. It really takes virtually no effort on our part, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ground. So we really want to thank everybody who's helping with that.
Well, my name is Tom Parker. I live on Lee Avenue. I'm also chair of the Civil Rights Commission here in Princeton. And I'll be very brief beyond that. I just want to thank, first and foremost, Eileen Shansley for the great work that she has done and bringing this, being the chief drafter of this resolution, and bringing this information and all the research and background work that she did to put this together and present it to us, giving civil rights an opportunity, again, to kind of weigh in on issues that are right within our venue of service to this community. But mostly want to thank the mayor and council. I know the outcome of this already, so my 4 score and 7 years ago speech that I have, I'll put aside. But thanking y'all once again for doing what Princeton has always done. We take the lead in issues like this, and we're going to be amongst the communities in the state to take the lead and can maybe urge our governor to take this down to the White House and do some stomping and hollering, especially since he has been just recently elected as chair of the Governors Association nationally. That means that he has some sort of influence, so let's get on him to do that. But thank y'all again for this opportunity. Thank you.
My name is Sally Steinberg. I live and work here in Princeton. I'm here in support of Resolution 2040, both as a descendant, as most of us are, of immigrants who worked hard and struggled to make it in America, which they were able to do. And I support our neighbors who are trying to do the same thing against terrible odds. I also speak as an immigration lawyer. I have been overwhelmed and distressed by not only the conditions in the detention centers and the outrageous and inhumane separation of families, but also by the continuing effort of the current administration to change the regulations, change the laws in ways that I think, and the courts have upheld, as illegal as well as immoral and unethical. It is difficult, even as an attorney, to obtain political asylum when Attorney General Sessions has said that being oppressed by a gang or being a young woman who faces domestic violence, or any woman who faces domestic violence and her country doesn't protect her, those are not grounds for political asylum, even though there are court cases that hold otherwise. I am very grateful for this resolution, and I am also grateful to you, council members and Mayor Lempert, for your support. I feel as if I have my finger in the dike and the water is pouring over the top. So God bless you and thank you.
Mayor and council members, greetings of peace and blessings. Thank you for your patience and for listening to all of us. As a local imam and as the Muslim chaplain at Princeton University, who shepherds hundreds of migrant families, including forced migrants, and as the father of a precious 2.5-year-old daughter that my wife and I were blessed to adopt from an orphanage in Karachi, Pakistan, I want to offer my support for this resolution to reunite migrant families immediately. After a long day, I look forward to going home to the loving and embracing arms of my daughter, as I'm sure many of you are. So it makes me shake to my core when I think of our government and our tax dollars going to separate children from their parents. This must not be allowed to stand. In Islam's wisdom tradition, it is said that one day the Prophet Muhammad was walking with his disciples when he came across an anxious mother bird flapping its wings and cawing desperately. The Prophet responded angrily, full of empathy, asking who has separated this mother bird from her children. If this is the compassion and justice that our prophets and sages demanded, then it behooves us to take action today and to continue this movement until this great stain upon the character of our nation is removed. I thank you so much for supporting this resolution. Peace.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Fraga?
Yes, Mayor, if I may, I would like to make the motion that we amend the title of the resolution to read Resolution 2040, calling upon the White House, Congress, and the state of New Jersey to reunify migrant families, release them from detention, and afford them due process in immigration proceedings. There's also another additional amendment that I'd like to make, and that would be after the last whereas, and in the line, now therefore be it resolved. Right now it says by council. I would like to add that to read by mayor and council of Princeton.
Thank you for that. Is there a second for the amendments?
Second.
Second.
So it's been moved by Ms. Fraga, seconded by Ms. Perrin-Lambros. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment passed. Now we need to vote on the,
Well, there's a
Mr.
second amendment we need to make also, or
Okay.
a third in this case. I just noticed something. In Section 7, 2 of those positions have changed. Andrew Kuntz is the new chair of the Mercer County Board of Freeholders. It has him as vice chair. And the new vice chair is Sam Frisbee. So this was correct about a week ago, or a little over a week ago, but it's actually has changed now. So we would need to make that amendment also.
Okay, is there a second to Mr.
So moved.
Williamson? Okay, so it's moved by Mr. Williamson, seconded by Ms. Fraga. All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and now all in favor of the resolution as amended?
Yes.
Aye.
Sorry, any opposed? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.
And now we'll let you get on with your agenda. Sorry we took up so much of your evening, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your work.
Thank you, Afshin, and everyone else.
Okay. So you all are welcome to stay, but you also don't need to. I just would ask if you're going to engage in conversation that you make sure the doors are closed so we can hear the rest of the meeting. So now we come to our ordinance introductions for this evening, and the first is, oh no, wait, we didn't do reports.
Reports.
Let's do reports next. We'll do council reports, starting on my right with Ms. Pearl-Lambros.
Okay, I have a brief report. I just wanted to report on the 6 paid firefighters that are coming on board. I wanted to, first of all, let you know that all of them will be certified fire truck drivers. So that's really good news for the residents' safety and quick response. And that the plan is that they'll start in early February, and their onboarding program will run about a week, where all 6 will be trained and go through an orientation program. And then I believe the preferred shift will be that they work 1 day on, 2 days off, with 2 of the paid firefighters working together at all times. So this is very significant for the safety of our residents. So I'd like to report that.
No reports.
No reports.
Just a quick one. I'm trying to find it. Just want to give an update on Maggie's Playground. And I was just switching from the resolution we just passed. Maybe I'll say, okay.
I'll give my report, and then we'll go back to you, unless you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, great.
I'm ready. I apologize. Yeah, just when I switched screens, it was off a little bit. Yeah, just a brief update on Maggie's Playground. The new equipment for the playground was ordered and delivered. There's crews who should be installing the new equipment as we speak. Unfortunately, a third tree had to be removed in addition to the original 2 that were identified as being in poor health. And they expect the work to be done, the installation work to be done in about a week, but then we still have to wait for the, there's a safety inspection that needs to be done, required safety surfacing to be added. And so stay tuned for the opening of the new and improved Maggie's Playground.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's great news. I have a report on the work of a subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee that's been working with the Planning and Zoning departments and looking at the parking requirements and the Central Business District. And the recommendation of the task force, I sit on it with Ms. Pearl-Lambros, is to relax the current parking requirement in the CBD for change of use applications. So the recommendation would only apply to applications where there is no additional square footage being added, and it only covers change of use. So from a retail shop to a restaurant, for example. Or from a restaurant to a service use. And the recommendation is to waive the requirement for up to 3 spots. And this would make it easier for small businesses looking to relocate or open up shop here because they would not need to go before the zoning board for a variance. And the proposal will next go to the EDC and to ZARC for their input, and then come to Council. And the part of the recommendation is to monitor the impacts of the change, and if it seems to be working well, to consider expanding it to some of the other business districts as well. So stay tuned. It still has a couple more stops to make before it comes back to council. Are there any staff reports? Yep, Mr. Mercer.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to give a quick update on the senior nutrition site since it's on consent for a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Mercer County. The lease agreement is to cover the next 2 years of lease for the county to operate the Mercer County nutrition site for the elderly out of the Chestnut Street Firehouse. As you're all aware, this has been a kind of a project for 2019 for the upgrades to the fire department out there. They're wrapping those things up. We're optimistic that the first meals will be served hopefully by the end of this month with there's going to be kind of a soft opening first because there's some work still to be done, and we'll do an official opening sometime early in mid-February for everybody else.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other reports? Nope. Okay. Then now we'll move on to ordinance introductions. The first is Ordinance 2020-1, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton creating the position of permanent paid firefighter in the Princeton Fire Department and amending the Code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. I think we heard a little bit of that already about it by Ms. Pearl-Lambros. Are there any questions from council on this ordinance? Or any comments from the public? And if not, is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved by Ms. Perrin-Lambros and seconded by Ms. Niedergang. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
The ordinance has been introduced. The public hearing for this ordinance will be on January 27th, 2020. Next is Ordinance 2020-2, an ordinance of the Municipal Council of the Municipality of Princeton and Mercer County, authorizing a lease with the Friends of Herenton Woods pertaining to a portion of Herenton Woods, also known as the Veblen property, part of Block 3001, Lot 7, and Block 2901, Lot 1 in the Municipality of Princeton. Mr. Cohen, do you want to say something about this? I didn't mean to call on you, just I couldn't tell if you were
I did
reaching
wanna-
for your mic. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I was.
All right.
I really just want to thank the individuals who worked on this. It was Mark DeShield, for one, who put a lot of effort into bird dogging the specifics of the contract, Lucille Davey, who helped with the legal review, and of course Steve Hiltner and the folks with Friends of Herenton Woods. It was a bit of a heavy lift, but we finally got it done, and now the next stage will be an even heavier lift as they start to work on renovating the Veblen house. But it should be an exciting process. So.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions about this ordinance, or is there, oh, yes, please come up to the microphone.
I just want to say that it's been 63 years since the Herenton Woods was donated to Mercer County, and that included the cottage. So that's how long it's been since these buildings have been standing there. And I do want to say, well, thank you, of course, for helping us prevent the demolition of these buildings. I also want to speak to Oswald Veblen's contributions in regards to immigrants, because he was decisive in helping many of the Jewish immigrants from Germany who were kicked out of the academics by the Nazis in 1933. He was decisive in bringing many of those to the U.S. where they could survive and flourish and help the U.S. Become strong in academics. So that's just one small part of his life, and these buildings that were donated by him and his wife there are many stories to tell, and that's one of them, very appropriate for tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to introduce ordinance 2020-2?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
All right, the ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on January 27th, 2020. Thank you, and thank you to the Friends of Herenton Woods for all your work on this project. Next is Ordinance 2020-3, the amended salary ordinance of the Mayor and Council of Princeton concerning salaries and compensation of certain personnel of the Municipality of Princeton. Mr. DeShield, did you want to give any background on this?
Absolutely. This salary ordinance before you is to make a couple of adjustments in the salary ordinance. One is changing the position from the Director of Infrastructure and Operations to the Director of Operations and Public Facilities for the change in the reorganization that we're doing in the Department of Infrastructure and Operations. This also will provide the actual position of firefighters, and it also provides the position where we took the recycling coordinator and converted that position to a sustainability coordinator.
Okay. Are there any questions, or is there a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Niedergang,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
All right, the ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on January 27th, 2020. Next is Ordinance 2020-4, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton adding alternate members to the Human Services Commission and amending Section 2-69 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. And this ordinance adds a couple alternate spots to help create more positions, because we have a lot of people who are interested, a lot of great people who are interested in serving on this commission. So is there,
I would like to move that.
okay, so it's been moved by Ms. Fraga. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Perrone Lambros. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perrone Lambros.
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes. The ordinance has been introduced, and the public hearing will be on January 27th, 2020. Next, we come to resolutions for this evening. We've been asked to hold the first resolution, 2030, or pull it from tonight's agenda, so that will probably be coming back to us in an updated form at a future council meeting. Next is Resolution 20-31, resolution authorizing the expenditure of up to $50,000 from the Princeton Open Space Trust Fund for the construction of up to 2 parallel parking spaces for public access to the 394 Ridgeview Road, Block 2201, Lot 22, open space parcel.
Mayor Lempert, I need to recuse for this, so I'm going to excuse myself.
Okay, and usually you state your reasons why, and I assume it's because of your employment at one of the partners.
Yes, so I am an employee of the Watershed Association, which is actively involved in this issue.
Thank you. And just to give some background, this was a open space acquisition that the council, I believe last year, had pledged $50,000 towards the acquisition. We actually received Green Acres funding for that $50,000, which is terrific. So we want to thank Planning Department for that. But one of the conditions for getting the funding is that we have public access by means of parking nearby. So the hope is that there might be a way to figure out the least intensive way to provide that parking. That's still being worked out, but we need to say, worst case scenario, we will be allocating this money to build the spots on the side of the road. So with that, yeah, Ms. Sachs?
So I have a question. Is this in addition to the original 50,000 for acquisition, or it's
Sort of. So in a way,
because the way it was written up in the
well,
packet, it seemed like it was instead of.
Well, what happened was the $50,000 that the council pledged from the Open Space Fund is no longer needed because we're receiving grant funding for it. So,
Right, so it's basically the total amount is 50,000.
the total amount for the town remains the same, although it's sort of like what the creation of the parking spots allows us to receive the grant. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
To phrase it that way? All right.
Great.
Mayor Lampert, just wanted to state that on the title for the block, it should be 2001 instead of 2201.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Trishka? Okay.
Okay. And I don't, did somebody make a motion for this already?
No.
Okay, all right. So does somebody want to move it with the block 2001?
So moved.
I'd like to. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
All right, well, I was going to say, moved by
I'll
Mr.
defer.
Williamson and seconded by Ms. Perrone-Lambros. Are there any further questions or discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang recused herself, Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Okay. Next is Resolution 2032, resolution authorizing a one-year contract extension in the not-to-exceed amount of $96,525 to Edward H. Cray Incorporation for 2020 traffic signal maintenance and construction services. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohen.
If I may interrupt, want to wait till Councilwoman Niedergang re-enters?
Yeah. Thank you, sorry. We didn't get very far. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Fraga. Any questions or discussions on this? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Resolution is.
Can I just make a quick comment in this, which is, just want to comment that these are services that until a couple of years ago were covered by the county and now have fallen on us. And I just want to point out that this is yet another unfunded mandate that we're being asked to pay for when we didn't used to, and out of our hands. Of course, traffic signals have to be maintained, but just want that noted for the record.
That's an important point. Thank you. Okay. Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2033, resolution authorizing an extraordinary unspecifiable service contract with R&D Consulting for information technology support from January through June 2020, not to exceed $42,900. Is there a motion to approve?
For the record, did you say 2033? I thought I heard 2032.
She did. It's 33.
It is
She said
33.
2033.
Right. I thought you said 32.
32.
I said 32. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
I thought
All
I
right.
heard
This
that.
is
Okay.
Resolution 2033
Right.
with the same text I just read for R&D Consulting information technology support January through June 2020, not to exceed $42,900. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Williamson. Any questions or comments on this? Oh, did I get it wrong?
I think it was moved
Oh,
by
is it-
Councilwoman Niedergang.
I'm like clearly waiting for dinner. All right. Moved by Ms. Niedergang and seconded by Mr. Williamson.
Right.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Next is Resolution 20-34, resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Kimberly M. Lacken Esquire to serve as municipal prosecutor for 2020, not to exceed $71,400. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Williamson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Madam Clerk, please
Ms.
call the roll.
Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2035, resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Anjali Sharma, DO, for pediatric services for Princeton's Well Baby Clinic for 2020, not to exceed $24,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Fraga. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Any questions? Madam Clerk, please read the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2036, resolution authorizing professional services agreement for 2020 public health nursing services with Catherine Corwin, not to exceed $30,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Niedergang and seconded by Ms. Fraga. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs.
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2037, resolution authorizing shared services agreement for 2020 supplemental public health nursing services with Montgomery Township, not to exceed $20,000. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Perrin-Lambros, seconded by Ms. Fraga. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sacks?
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously. Next is 2038, resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with French and Perello Associates, PA, in the not-to-exceed amount of $15,150 for survey services for Dickinson Street and 2 roadways within the lower Heatherstone neighborhood. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohen,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Niedergang. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms.
I have a-
Perron-
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick comment. I'd just like to commend the engineering department for this very proactive approach that will hopefully bring in more different companies bidding on this to break it up into smaller segments. So I thought that was very, very smart move, so thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Sacks?
Yes.
Resolution passes unanimously, and now we come to the consent agenda, which contains items of a routine nature passed by single vote. Are there any items anyone would like removed from the consent agenda? And seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Niedergang. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes unanimously, and now is there a motion to move back into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Ms. Niedergang. All in favor of moving back into closed session?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are now in closed section. Thank you. Lee, you win the award for the final survivor here. Mike wanted to talk on Ridgeview Road.
Oh,
Oops.
Mike who?
Mike
He saw
Pizarro.
that, but then he didn't wave at me, so I forgot. Anyway, he got what he wanted, so, yeah, it's fine. So he didn't talk. So I forgot.
This guy didn't talk.
Yeah, but then these are all the people in order.
Right.